original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's nerd of mediocrity. Play your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live the dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. Excited to be back in the studio with you all this week. Took a little break last week, and so you had the opportunity to check out how to develop your self-discipline once again. But I'm back here this morning and excited about today's topic. I took some time off to be with family, and we went camping for the weekend. Had a phenomenal time. I think we, as a family, my cousins and I and a few friends, we've had the opportunity to do that more this year than we have in the past. I think for obvious reasons, and I'm thankful and grateful for the memories and for the blessing of being with family and having that type of opportunity. And for those of you listening, my cousins listening, man, love you guys. And man, did we created some memories, especially my cousin who woke up in the middle of the night with rain in his tent. Who, by the way, basically told us to mind our own business, and he had it. And it turns out he didn't. Love you, cuz. Anyway, we got an awesome show planned for you guys. Here's the thing, right? If this is your first time joining and listening in, what I've been doing is I've been diving into Personal Development 101. Personal Development 101. And in order to do this, the very first show, and this was maybe a couple of months ago, and then we took a bit of a break, was about personal development and what personal development is, like just Personal Development 101. But then after that, I decided to walk down the steps of personal development and identified the 7 critical steps to personal development, the 7 steps that we all need to take if we're interested and committed to personal development. And so we've covered 2 of those steps already. And today we'll be covering number 3, which is how to become self-motivated. And let me tell you this, if you feel like you're a pretty motivated person already, you still want to listen to this one. Because it's not just how to become self-motivated, but also how to bounce back from failures. Because one of the guarantees that we have in life is that we're going to have winters, we're going to have summers, we're going to have fall, we're going to have spring, which means we go through cycles. And in those cycles, sometimes that means that we might experience the unfortunate reality of failure. The question always is, how do you bounce back? How do you bounce back? And the ability to motivate yourself is a critical component of bouncing back. But the ability to motivate yourself is the key to success in particular. And I'll cover why I say that. But the ability to motivate yourself. No motivation, no action, man. No action. But we'll dive into the topic this morning. Number one was how to create your life's vision. If you missed that particular episode or broadcast, you can check it out now on YouTube at Linal Harris. That's LinalHarris. While you're there, be sure to subscribe. Number two was how to develop your self-discipline. And I've seen it so far that turns out to be the favorite so far. And I continue to get emails on that one and responses to that one. So thank you for the acknowledgement. And if you want to check that show out, if you happen to miss it over the last couple of weeks, that one is also available on YouTube. Today, how to become self-motivated. Now, I want to start off by asking a few questions. And these questions are just really for you to think about in the context of life. In the context of life, when you think about life, like, what do you believe? Do you believe that ultimately life is one big head game? And if you can mentally get yourself in the right place, that you can win this game? Do you believe that your life is the sum result of the story that you tell yourself? Do you believe that? You know, as human beings, we love stories. We live out stories. And consider that you just might be living out the story you've been telling yourself. So then you have to kind of go to that first phase of discipline, awareness, and ask yourself, well, what story am I telling myself? Here's another one. Do you believe that purpose makes the critical difference in your life? That having a purpose, not having a purpose, knowing your purpose, not knowing your purpose, pursuing your purpose, not pursuing your purpose, makes a distinct difference in the quality of your life? Do you believe that? Do you believe that success in life requires continual adjustment? That you have to constantly be adjusting, constantly be surveying the land. And by the way, let's be clear about what success means, right? Because often we correlate success with certain things, but success is ultimately what you believe that it is. Not what I say, but what you believe. So whatever you believe success is, do you believe that you have to continually make adjustments to be successful? Or what about this one? Do you believe in celebrating the tiny successes on the way towards achieving the big goal? And do you believe that that has a significant impact on your mentality for achieving the goal? Just questions to start off. And by the way, the topic again is how to become self-motivated. And one of the things I've learned is part of motivation is a very deep sense of curiosity. We'll be talking about that in the future. Do you believe that it's the sum total of life that matters, not the moments? No matter how dark, low, and deep those moments may be, it's the sum total of life that matters. Do you believe that? What about this one? Do you believe we gain knowledge through suffering? That's an interesting one. And again, these are personal questions because, you know, I think we all may land in different categories in terms of how we obtain knowledge. But do you actually gain knowledge from suffering? Or are you just suffering? Here's another one. Would you consider yourself mentally tough? Would you consider yourself mentally tough? And is being mentally tough a requirement for success in life? Last one. Do you believe the passion you're looking for is already all around you? It's just about tuning in your lens to see it. Do you believe that? Well, I asked those questions just to get the mind going this morning because I have a lot of content that I want to share with you in terms of about the topic of becoming self-motivated and being self-motivated and what it means to be, right? State of being of motivated. And I want to share a story first because I honestly believe this is something we have to learn how to do. And I can remember back years ago going to conferences and seminars and summits and being like, just fully motivated, feeling wonderful while at the conference, right? While leaving the conference. And then when I got home afterwards, nothing happened. Maybe except for I was a few dollars short of when I walked into the conference. Maybe I had a new recurring bill from the conference. And this was my reality, by the way. Years going to conferences, being motivated, leaving the conference, struggling with the same things, wondering why I couldn't apply, I couldn't use the things that I had been taught, that why I couldn't in many ways stir up that same feeling that had me feeling in that moment, in that seat, feeling like I could conquer the world. And where was that? When I was alone and all by myself. I can recall some of the investments I made. I've talked about them before on the show. The big box with all the goal binders, how to achieve your goals. That box cost me $299.99. I got it home and it sat at the bottom of my bookshelf for a year before I ever opened it. And I remember too being mad at the person who motivated me to buy the box. This dude had me lose my money, waste my money on this box. I hadn't even opened it, but I was just upset because the motivation I had when I bought it, I no longer had. And so to open it seemed like work. I didn't want to open it. I remember going to one conference. I was with my mom at this one, man, and they were talking about tax lien investments and how you could become wealthy, purchasing the taxes of others. And I was so motivated at the time. I said, oh, man, I was in real estate, was doing real estate. And I said, oh, man, here's a easier way to go about it. We bought the program, so motivated, so inspired. A week later or so, I remember looking through those forms and flipping through the workbooks, and I felt like I was reading Greek. And my level of motivation just dropped. How do you get started? Where do you go? I said you had to go down to the county. What do you say when you get there? What would they think? I can't do this. Motivation, kind of almost like a leak in a tire, just deflated. I can remember going to another conference. They talked about real estate investment. And I was already investing in real estate, but they were like, you're doing it all wrong. This is how you should do it. And I remember buying all the CDs and the binders that came with it, right? Incredibly inspired and motivated. A month later or so, after listening to the CDs and flipping through the books, I found myself going back to the way I had always done business. I'd always invested in real estate and realizing that, hey, this is a little more difficult than what they made it seem. Level of motivation just came back down. Years ago, I was at another conference and they taught me how to, or they showed us how easy it was to invest stock and told us like, hey, the big mistake people are making in the stock market is that they're investing equity. And you gotta learn something different. You need to learn how to invest in options, Linal. I thought, yeah, he's right. I got to learn how to invest in options. You make more money with options. Wow, this makes so much sense. I remember the program cost $5,000. Now, mind you, I was doing all this before 30. So it wasn't like I had the money now, okay? I mean, I was making investments in my future because I was motivated. I remember purchasing this $5,000 program that came with audiobooks and CDs and a personal coach, and getting back home and going through those CDs. And I had even met another brother named David. And him and I, he was older than me, but him and I, we decided we're going to be personal accountability buddies. And we're going to build our fortune in the stock market. And I started investing and trading paper, but I didn't want to trade my money. I was too afraid to trade my money. I didn't have a lot of money. And I remember them saying, hey, if you do this, the $5,000 you spend, you'll make up that and more than that in the first year. And the first year came and went, and I didn't make my money back. And this is why I believe that for many of us, motivation can feel deceptive. And this is also why I don't consider myself a motivational speaker, but rather a life teacher. Because motivation and inspiration are emotions. And I think all too often we forget that. And for many of us, we can't conjure up that same feeling of motivation, that same feeling of inspiration when the time comes, because what we don't really know and what we haven't understood and what we haven't distinguished quite yet is that fatigue runs our life. Because we don't know how to generate ourselves outside of the norm of being tired, the energy of not having enough, the energy of not necessarily thinking clear enough to comprehend and to do the things that we say we want to do. And so often we find ourselves lacking the motivation. So why is that? And how can we become more self-motivated? Now, I want to go back to all those different things, right? Because somebody like, yeah, Linal, so, I lost my money too. And I know people who lose their money going to these conferences and seminars and thinking that they're going to do the things that these speakers are saying. And here's the deal. That big box with the goals in it, it wasn't that year, but a few years later, I cracked it open and I read it. And it did provide me something. And I'll tell you, if I had to go back, I would spend the $299.99 all over again. But not just that. If he charged $1,000, knowing what I know today, I would pay the $1,000. Because when I finally did open the binder and I read it, what I learned, the competencies I learned, have changed my life. Those tax lien investments, the real estate investments, to this day, there are things I understand about real estate, things I know how to move with real estate that I wouldn't know otherwise. Ways to protect myself and things to do that I wouldn't know otherwise. So yeah, I spent the money. I didn't necessarily do it in that moment. But now I know, and now these are things that I can do. And so if I had to go back again, I would do it. And I'll tell you that when I look across all the conferences, all the seminars, all the things that I did, the only thing that I was missing is I did not know how to become self-motivated. I didn't know. I go back to when I spent the money on this organization to teach me how to trade stocks and options. And guess what? I learned how to do it, and I was afraid to trade my own money because I didn't have so much. But it gave me a knowledge of the market that even today my family benefits from. That even today I I know how to, and I'm willing to, and courageous enough to trade my own money and benefit from the moves, the ups and downs of the market. I've learned how to make money when the market's going up. I've learned how to make money when the market's going down. It wasn't the problem with the tool. The problem was I didn't know how to become, in that moment, self-motivated. And so what I want to talk about today is not the ills of motivation in the moment. Because I believe motivation in the moment and doing things that like purchasing things from an emotional place of motivation and inspiration, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think what happens is we don't know how to follow it up. We don't know how to generate that same level of emotion and intensity in our lives on Monday morning. We don't know how to generate that same level of intensity and motivation in our lives on Tuesday. We don't know how to live throughout the week with that same level of high, that same clarity, that same level of motivation that we got on Sunday, on Thursday. We don't know how to live on Thursday, right? Come Friday, all we want to do is just chill. But this morning, what I want to do, I want to teach you how even at the end of the week, to dig into a place that most people don't know how to dig into and tap into levels of motivation and inspiration that keep you aligned, that keep you constantly moving towards your goal. So to do that, let's start with the simple definition. The simple definition of motivation. But right before we do that, let me say this. I talked about fatigue running our lives. I want to be clear on something. It's not my job or the job of anyone else to generate your emotions for you. It's not my job to generate emotions of motivation. It's not my job to generate motivation, to generate emotions of inspiration. Now, it might happen as a consequence of listening, but it's not my job. My job is to ignite a spark, right? In the moment, ignite a spark. You have to fan the flames. And this morning, what I want to do is I want to teach you how to fan those flames in your own life. Throughout this pandemic, I've received a number of emails from YouTube subscribers or radio listeners asking me, Linal, how do I fix my lack of motivation? Many people came into the pandemic on a motivational high saying, hey, you know what? I'm about to take this thing to the next level. Okay, you quarantined me, you had me sheltering in place, that's fine. But I promise you I'll come out better. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by, a month goes by, we're not out of quarantine yet? You mean this is a longer event? Here we are in September. In many ways having the same conversations. We may not be in quarantine, but the impact of the pandemic has hit. And many of us are trying to pull more motivation into our lives, trying to figure out why we feel so sluggish. And when I look at the emails, the themes I notice, the flavor, follow two phrases. Linal, I'm just not motivated anymore. Or, I'm not motivated enough to... ... And I'll tell you something, these phrases are clear indications to me that most of us have a misunderstanding of what motivation really means. And so let's look at the definition. Because motivation, according to the dictionary, is a noun. It's not an action. Now, let's just stay there for a second. It's a noun. And so this means that if it's a noun, it has to be a person, place, or thing. Well, we know it's not a person. We know it's not a place. So maybe it could be a place. So it must be a thing. And this thing, quote unquote, is what I would call a state of being, right? That's one of the reasons, if you look at the title for today, the topic, so how to be, right? B-E, capital B, capital E. How to be self-motivated. How to actually conjure up the state of motivation in your life. So it's a noun. And the definition says the act or instance of motivating or providing with the reason to act in a certain way. But then here's the one I'm looking for. Number 2, the state or condition of being motivated. Like, what if you could take on this state in your life? What would change? What would shift? If every day you knew how to, because you won't feel it. Let's be clear. You won't always feel it. But what if you knew how to bring on the state even when you didn't feel it? The state and condition of being motivated or having a strong reason to act and accomplish something. That's the definition. Now, this is why I started the 7 steps of personal development with vision. Because part of your ability to bring on the state of motivation has a lot to do with your why. Right? Like Linal, you always bring it back to purpose. Man, now you're starting to understand why purpose is so important. And so now that we have the definition of motivation to provide us clarity, I want to tap into the 5 reasons that motivation is typically misunderstood. And I'm going to move through these 5 reasons fairly quickly. Because now that we know that this is a state, it's a condition, right? If I said someone was in a state of depression, you know that they're in a condition, like they're in a condition where they feel pulled down. So then if I say someone's in a state of motivation, think about that. And if you wonder how I move in my life or how I can do some of the things, how I've accomplished some of the things I've accomplished, now you're beginning to see, right? It's a state. Like I wake up, I'm not always motivated, but I know how to get into the state of motivation. We got things to do. We got impact to make. Got a legacy to build. All right, so why is motivation misunderstood? Number 1, write these down if you're listening. Number 1, motivation doesn't last. See, it's a state and it's a condition, but unlike some other things, it's almost, I'm going to tell you something. You can learn yourself. You can teach yourself how to pull yourself up when you're low, right? And you can also teach yourself how to pull yourself down when you're high. Gay Hendricks calls that the upper limit in his book, The Big Leap, right? We're conditioned. By the way, we're taught these things mostly from our parents. And God bless them. God bless our parents. I mean, God knows I'm thankful and grateful for mine. But they were learning too. They're still learning now. And so, some of the things we've learned from them. And so you got to ask yourself, okay, what am I going to take? And what am I going to let go? And what am I going to unlearn? And what am I going to learn? Motivation doesn't last, folks. Most of us understand that statement. However, we often forget it. And one of my favorite quotes is by Zig Ziglar. And what he says is, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily, every day, getting into the state, in the condition of motivation. And I'm going to tell you something, man, you got to remember this one, because right now in this moment, you're like, man, okay, I'm feeling it, Linal. I'm feeling it. And by the end of this broadcast, you might be brimming over, man. I'm ready. I am ready. But if you can't remember that you might not be in that state tomorrow, you're in trouble, because motivation doesn't last. This is why when I attended seminars years ago and I bought these products, I kind of fell down because I expected the magic in the moment that presenter gave to me to just carry me all the way throughout the week. But what I wasn't privy to, what I didn't know is that was an emotion. And as I left the seminar and I got into my car and I began to get into other conversations and do different things, that it was coming down. It was coming down. And by the time I waited until Monday morning, another mistake, to do what I said I was going to do, I just didn't have to make it happen. I didn't realize that it was my job to stay motivated and get into action so I can see my plans through to completion, because I didn't realize that motivation didn't last. That's number one. Number two, motivation doesn't magically eliminate bad habits. Now think about that. Think about that. Motivation does not automatically eliminate bad habits. So let's think about this. This is number two. So if motivation doesn't magically eliminate bad habits, that means I can be all fired up and motivated. Woo! Great. But if I don't get into action, oh man, guess what's going to meet me at the door? My habits. And if I got bad habits, ooh, man. And guess what one of our habits are? I can just do it tomorrow. It's been a long day. That was a great conference. It was a great seminar. It was a great radio show. And, oh man, Linal always does a good job. And I'm going to get on this tomorrow morning. And most of us, we allow the bad habit of procrastination to completely undermine any motivation we experience in the moment. Because motivation doesn't eliminate bad habits, folks. And then here's the thing. There are plenty of other bad habits that nullify motivation. Perfectionism. Later I'm going to get into 3 questions you should ask yourself to get motivated. One of them is, can I do it? Will it work? And you know what a perfectionist does? Perfectionist says, yeah, I can do it. And guess what? I can do it better than anybody else. Which means I'm going to have to work on it. Think about it. Study how, study long, study wrong. They never get into action. Perfectionism. Or here's another one. I put a post on Instagram about this one, busyness. See, if you have a habit of just being busy and busy-minded, then you get motivated, but you're like, okay, so where am I going to put this among my many priorities? But wait a second. This is about your life. You said you wanted to change your life. And so maybe this should be the number one priority, but instead we get so busy. We're like, well, I'm going to do this for this person. I'm going to do this for that person. I got to do this over here. I got to do this. And then we're so tired. We're so fatigued. But by the time we get back to us, by the time I get back to me, my bad habit of busyness has completely depleted my motivation. I just don't have it anymore. I don't have it in me. And because I don't know how to get back to the state of motivation, the habit wins. Another habit is the need to be entertained. You're like, oh man, I'm gonna write this book. It's gonna change people's lives. Or oh man, I can't wait to take on this new project. But first, oh wait. Oh, did Disney Plus just drop a new movie? Oh, did Netflix just drop a new episode? Well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna watch this first and get that out of my system, and because I deserve it. By the way, I've worked really hard today, and then I'll do what I said I'm gonna do. That's gonna change my life. I'll do it then. The need to be entertained. And then last is just laziness. I don't feel like it. And you got to know where you are with that one. But and let me tell you, there are a number of ways to address these different bad habits. But the one way that has done wonders for me and hundreds of others that I've coached is ontological coaching. And the reason I say ontological coaching is because it starts with awareness. I'm going to tell you something. Most of us, like, we think we know our bad habits. You think you know them, but you're not even aware of, like, the bad habit of thinking negatively. You're not even aware of telling yourself that you don't have enough. You can't do it. You're not even aware of that dialogue, right? And so then maybe you go off to do it all motivated, and what pulls you down is your own negative talk. Nobody else says it. You do. You start working on a project, you start working on a thing that's got you motivated, but you got a bad habit of negative talk. And as soon as you start working, that voice starts talking. What you think you doing? Are you about to change your life? Who do you think you are? And by the way, it's not so nice because it throws expletives at you. I mean, it just talks you down. And you got a bad habit of listening. Number 2, motivation doesn't eliminate bad habits, folks. Number 3, motivation is a choice. Feeling down on your luck? You feel like life has dealt you a poor hand? Nothing going your way? All those are great reasons to be unmotivated, right? After all, nobody understands your plight, right? Wrong. Because there are plenty of people. I think we forget this sometimes. There are plenty of people that have it tougher than us. Plenty of people. I remember years ago, a friend of mine's father saying, hey man, somebody's always going to be smarter than you and somebody's always going to be dumber than you. Make sure you're not trying to make yourself smarter than dumb people, and make sure you're not trying to make yourself dumber than smart people. Be you. Somebody's always got it tougher, folks. And once I told a friend, he was down. He was real down. I flew into town, and when I saw him, he was depressed. And he was just, his energy was starting to bring me down. So mind you, and this is later on after I've been doing this work and constantly talking about these type of things and writing about these type of things and coaching. And so he's in my space, and I'm like, man, bro, your energy, and we're going to have to do something. Either you're going to have to adopt mine, or I'm going to have to separate because I can't adopt yours, right? He's like, man, you just don't understand. And he started telling me what's going on, and I paused him. I said, you know what, man, take a deep breath. And he was like, what? I was like, take a deep breath. And he, okay. I said, all right, now, flex the muscles in your arms. And he kind of looked at me. Flex the muscles in your arms, bro. And he flexed the muscles in his arms. I said, flex the muscles in your chest. And he flexed the muscles in his chest. I said, flex the muscles in your back. He flexed the muscles in his back. I said, stand up. He stand up. I said, bend down and touch your toes. And he bent down and touched his toes. And by now he's smiling. I'm like, you're blessed. You have nothing to complain about. You have the faculty and facility of all your limbs. You can breathe. Your heart is beating. You're alive. God has been good to you. He just kind of laughed. And he said, man, you're right. I get into these states. I'm like, yeah, well, join my state of motivation. And I'm going to tell you, some of us, man, we got to stop the pity party. We get addicted to the woe is me blues song. And you got to get to a point, if you really want to take your life to the next level, consider that motivation is a choice. Motivation is a choice. That's number 3. And if you choose self-pity, fine. Just know that feeling like the world took a dump on you, that's going to be your reward. That's going to be the payoff of feeling like that. So when it happens, when the world does take a dump on you, then be responsible. Be responsible for what you chose and for what you created. Don't complain about it, because your energy brought that to you. Your energy brought The idea that people should truly pity you. Now they pity you. You're creative. Your energy crafts your creations. Motivation is a choice. And I know I made somebody mad just now, but that's okay. Keep listening. Number 4, motivation doesn't create action. Now, motivation can supply the energy to take on action, but it doesn't create the action itself. Don't believe me? Then, let's go to somebody else, maybe a little smarter than I am. Peter Brickman summed this up nicely in an article that he wrote in the Harvard Business Review, titled, "Your Problem Isn't Motivation." And in this article, he states, motivation is in the mind. Follow through is in the practice. And then he also says, because motivation is conceptual, follow through is practical. All right, so what does that mean? Conceptual meaning motivation is mental and emotional. It's not tangible. It's conceptual, right? So even now we're having a conceptual conversation. It's not tangible. It's not something you can feel. You can't necessarily see it. You can't necessarily taste it. You can't necessarily touch it. In some ways, right? Because I tell you, sometimes I feel like I can taste the motivation in my life. I can taste it. It's in my mouth. I can taste it. But another way of saying this is that motivation creates the fertile soil for the seeds of action to be planted. But somebody's got to go plant the seeds, right? And that somebody is you. That somebody is you. So I'm going to tell you one of the biggest tricks I've learned: take action when you're motivated. Let me give you an example. Happened yesterday. So yesterday I'm finishing up. I'm looking through the notes for today's broadcast, and I'm just kind of getting everything in order. I'm like, okay, so I'm all done. My son was taking a nap. My wife, she was with her family handling some business, and I'm like, okay, well, I got a little free time, and so I'm in my office and I start looking around, and I see a document I had sitting there, and I pick up the document and I just kind of breeze through it and I read it, and all of a sudden someone's like, hey man, you should just take this on right now in the moment. Like I felt a sense of motivation just from reading the document. Another voice said, well, you've been going. This has been a long week. You wrote 2 proposals. You've been working long days, 11 to 12 hour days. And then you come up, you help your wife cook and clean. And you've been doing all these things. You need to sit down. You need to take some rest. You need to watch a movie. So I'm in my office and I got these 2 voices and I'm thinking, yeah, but this right here is connected to my purpose. This is why I'm alive. I can watch a movie later. But I was in the conversation and I knew if I don't take action right now, I might not get a chance to do this. So I said, okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. An hour later, I look up on my whiteboard and I've written things that I probably would have never wrote because I acted in the moment from the motivation. The movie's still there. But what I wrote wouldn't have been. Act when you're motivated. All right, number 5, before we go to break. Number 5, motivation is an energizing force. Can you remember the last time you were really motivated? What did it feel like? For me, motivation feels like a surge of energy. That feeling of motivation seems to create an endless opening of possibility. And that can be intoxicating. It takes a certain level of self-discipline and wisdom to not only enjoy that motivational high, but also use that energizing force to get into action. It takes self-discipline. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how do we start harnessing that energy? How do we start harnessing that energy and stepping into the state and condition of motivation every day of our life? You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host and coach, Linal Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. We'll be right back after this break. Don't change that dial. Stay motivated. All right, good morning, you guys. How you doing? Let's do a quick check-in.
The Talk of Chicago and the voice of the
See
nation.
how you guys doing this morning?
1690 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
All right. Here, give me a second. Okay, there we go. All right, good morning. Let's see. That's right. Act in the moment of motivation. Act. Takes self-discipline, man. It takes a different level of self-discipline. For those of you here on the break, where I would have gone if I had more time, let me just pull it up real quick and see if I can. I would have gone here, right? Because to act in that moment takes a certain level of awareness, commitment, and concentration, man. You got to be focused. And these are the three phases of self-discipline. Now, those of you who join me every Monday, you all have seen this. And you also had the chance to download it. You join me every Monday on the free webinar, free coaching webinar. If you haven't done that before, by all means, please join on this upcoming Monday at noon. Where we will dissect parts of this show, and I'll really begin to help you and coach. So I'll coach anyone who needs coaching right there on the webinar. But we'll also dissect even deeper what I've talked about today. And so you don't want to miss that. But we dissect it in a way where I'm right there with your questions, because during the show, I can't necessarily see you all's questions. I have Facebook up, but I also have my notes up, and maybe one day if I have multiple screens and I can see it, I can, but that's not today. So, and here's the information for Monday's webinar here. All right, and is it there? I think it's there. Yep, it's there. Okay, boom, there we go, and I'll pin it. Actually, I just removed the pin on mistake. Here we go. Let's go back and pin it. All right, so real quick, what questions do you guys have? What questions do you guys have about today's topic? I'm looking through the comments right now. And by the way, if you're enjoying this and you're getting something from it, by all means, please share the stream. Please share with others so they can have, experience and have the same impact that this topic and this show is having on you. Motivation can also be a form of discipline. You know what? Almost anything, I agree with that, Tina. Almost anything that you want to do intentionally has to go through the channel of self-discipline. That's why how to develop your self-discipline was number 2. Because we kind of had to start there in order to really help people go the rest of the way in terms of the 7 steps of personal development. And I believe one of the reasons why people struggle with personal development is because the discipline that's necessary to really fully develop, to really personal, to develop yourself personally. And so that's a good point. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, I'm just looking for questions here, but I'm also looking at the comments. Thank you guys for tracking with me. I appreciate it. Good morning to all of you all. All right, I think we're coming back. Yeah, we're coming back.
Programs are not necessarily those
All
of
right,
WVON.
I'll do my best to answer the
Broadcasting
questions after the show, you guys.
Or participating sponsors.
In the comments.
Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Now, inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live a dream. Now, inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. We've been talking about how to become, or how to be, B-E, self-motivated. How to be self-motivated and conjure up the state in the condition of motivation in your life on a regular basis. All right, so we covered the 5 reasons motivation is misunderstood. I'll run through those real quick, and then we'll get into the rest of the topic, because what I want to talk about is how to be, right? How to, no matter what's happening in your life, how to bring on this state of motivation. And even share some examples from my own life when things look dark, and I was able to pull myself out through the state of motivation. Okay, in prayer, in God, but ultimately you have to be motivated to pray. You got to be motivated to connect. All right, number 1, motivation doesn't last. The number 1 reason why motivation is misunderstood, because it doesn't last. So people, they're kind of like, well, what happened? Well, it doesn't last, folks. Number 2. Motivation doesn't magically eliminate bad habits. Number 3, motivation is a choice. Number 4, motivation doesn't create action. And number 5, motivation is an energizing force that you must use, you must funnel. If you want to win at whatever it is you're doing, you have to learn how to funnel that energy and that force into action. And that takes discipline. All right. Okay, so real quick, I just want to acknowledge Nicholas Cunningham. He's on the Facebook feed, you guys. Those of you guys on Facebook right now, give Nicholas Cunningham some love. He is the creator of the theme song you all hear every Sunday. And he's on the the Facebook live stream right now. So that you guys give him some love. Give Nicholas some love. If you see his name there, give him some love. Let him know how much we appreciate him for doing that, for creating that phenomenal intro. That I'll tell you, brings energy, brings the right and correct energy to the show. Nicholas, I appreciate you, brother. And I acknowledge you. And thank you for taking your gift and your purpose and your talent and all the things that you learned from the Purpose Workshop and funneling into a gift like this that continually gives to me, continually gives to this audience. Man, do I appreciate you. And man, for your production and music needs, you might want to hit that brother up. Okay? I appreciate you, bro. All right, so I want to cover now the 3 questions that boost motivation and empowerment. So you want to get your notebook out. You want to listen to this, okay? 3 questions that boost motivation and empowerment. And I didn't create these questions. These questions came from a lot of research by a gentleman named Scott Geller. And upon reading the research and being with the research, I thought this was right on point, and I want to share it with you. The first one is a question of self-efficacy. Now, let me define. I've said that word a few times, efficacy. And let me define what efficacy is. Efficacy is the ability to put effort in a place where it's most effective, so you don't have to use as much effort as you normally would. That's called efficacy. How to put effort in the best place for it to be effective, so you don't have to apply as much effort as you normally would. So when we talk about self-efficacy, a question of self-efficacy is really a question of how do I take effort and maximize it, right? And that question, the very first question that Mr. Geller says we should ask ourselves to become most self-motivated is, number one, can I do it? All right? And when you ask the question, can I do it, you're also asking yourself questions like, do I have the time? Do I have the training? Do I have the knowledge to make this happen? And if not, can I get it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Right? And I want you to think about your aspirations and your goals. And I love a quote by Richard Bach. I repeat this quote often, that no man or woman is given an idea that they cannot create. Right? So if you got the idea, question number one is answered. Can I do it? The answer is yes. God wouldn't have given you the idea if you didn't have the capability. All right? Now, do I have the time? Do I have the training and the knowledge to make this happen? Maybe you don't. Can I get it? Absolutely. One of the beauties of living in the information age. You can definitely get it. Number two, will it work? All right, so if I do this, if I leave corporate America and go into entrepreneurialism, will it work? Will I be able to feed my family? Will it work? Well, I've seen other people do it. And I believe I can create what I see, right? I see, so it must work. It must work. But that's the second question of motivation. Like, to really, really boost your motivation, will it work? If I do this, will it work? Number three is the big one. This is the real motivation question right here. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And if you answer yes to these questions, that means you feel competent and motivated about whatever it is you're looking to take on. Now, do you want to? And the other question is, what will you choose? And I think we forget this when it comes to motivation. Who will support you? I think I shared a story about being in the barbershop. Big ups to my barber if he's listening this morning. And I was actually in the shop on Friday. But being in the barbershop on a Saturday, and I was in the barbershop, I was getting my haircut. My barber asked me, he said, and I'm talking about community and motivation here. All right, and this is, I told you, I'm going to share moments where I'm not motivated. And I'm in the barbershop and getting my haircut, and he says, hey, man, what's the show about tomorrow? I'm looking forward to tuning in. And I told him, I said, man, I don't know. I think I might take tomorrow off, man. I'm just not even in the headspace. And he kind of, swung the chair around and he looked at me and he was like, man, no, bro, you got to do the show. The show must go on. And the reason I wasn't in the headspace is because a lot had happened in my family. My sister had been in the hospital and we had spent the weekend with her. And it was just exhausting for me. It was exhausting for the entire family. And I went to the barbershop after because I had the standing appointment, but I just wasn't feeling it. He said, nah, man. And this is where community comes in, right? When you're not in the state, because you have been in the state and other people know you to be in the state. When you're not in the state, your community says, no, come over here. Come over here with me. You put me here. Now I'm bringing you here. It's time to get motivated. It's time to do your work. By the time I left the barbershop, I was motivated to do the show because the people I put in my community, even around to my barber, right? My wife's asked me before, why you been with the same barber so long? You don't think somebody else can do a better job or blah, 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 blah. I'm like, look, man, this is my barber. I've been going to this guy since I was 19, but here's the other thing. He's a part of my community. I digress right now, but think about Chadwick Boseman and the secret that he was able to keep from all of us because of his community. And I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes the people around you, if they pour into you, they're not. I have a client right now who's a stylist. And I'll tell you, anybody who gets into her chair, they're not just getting their hair done. They're getting their soul ministered to. You get where I'm going? And so sometimes we think that, oh, I'm just going to work out. But your trainer is also ministering to your soul. I'm just going to get my hair cut. But your barber is also ministering to your soul. Your community is important to your motivation. All right. So step 2 is understanding why you're motivated and what it is that you really want, right? Remember, number 2, will it work? Will it work? So why am I motivated? And what is it that I really want that has sourced this motivation? And so this morning, I want you to ask yourself, what do you want? Or if you're asking yourself, what do I want? What do I really want? And I'm going to tell you something. I believe one of the reasons people struggle with motivation is because they don't know themselves. And because they don't know themselves, they don't know what they really want. Like what you really, really want. We're told what to want. Oh man, I want that new pair of J's. Oh man, I want that new bag. Oh man, I want that new car. You've been told that those are the things that you want. But what do you really want? Like when you get down to the core and to the depth of your soul and your spirit, what is it that you really, really want? And by the way, nothing wrong with the bag, nothing wrong with the J's, nothing wrong with the car, because wants are part of our everyday desires. But wants are also our aspirations. What do you aspire to? Wants have a lot to do with our concerns. What are you concerned about? Wants are the things or the conditions we would like to have. Very, very much. And we want our office to be comfortable. We want the deal to be profitable. We want the price to be affordable. Those are also wants. But at the end of the day, what is it that you aspire to? What is it that you want in your life? What do you want to create? What legacy do you want to leave? And are you so connected to it that when you think about it, it pulls you into a state of motivation? A state of motivation. Now, notice I didn't mention needs. And there's a reason I didn't mention needs. And the reason I didn't mention needs is because underneath most of our wants are a set of core motivations. Our needs. Safety and survival. You guys have seen this in Maslow's hierarchy. Safety and survival. Food, drink, and other life necessities. Belonging to a community. Love. Respect. And meaning. Like these are the things that we need. Freedom and control over my fate. These are the things I need, right? Now, here's the thing. And this is a bit tricky. For those of you on Facebook, I'm going to put this slide up for you so you can actually track with me here, okay? Because here's the thing. Motivation decreases as our needs are met. So as you begin to have your psychological needs, your physiological needs met, right? Your physiological needs are food and water and things like that. As those needs are met, your motivation to get them drops. Like when you eat, like think about it. When you eat and you have a full stomach, your motivation to eat drops. You push the plate away. You leave the restaurant, right? You venture away from the food. When you're safe, you relax. Your need for safety drops. When you feel loved and you feel like you belong somewhere, well, your motivation begins to decrease. And when you feel like you have the respect and belonging, like your motivation begins to decrease. And this is why self-actualization and purpose is so important. Because in our society, most of us have these things. We have these things. You have the food and water that you need. You have the shelter that you need. You have the safety in many ways that you need. You have a car to get you from A to B, etc. And so your motivation to push for something more, well, it's just not there because your needs have been met. But when you're self-actualized, when you know who you are and why you exist, and you have purpose, your motivation increases as your needs are met. Because what happens is, what begins to happen is, now that I have a base for my needs being met, now it's time for me to go pursue my purpose, ensure that the needs of others are met. And so this is one of the reasons why people who lack purpose, and especially in the upper and middle class, right? Those of us who are doing fairly well, like when we lack purpose, it's hard to push to write that book. I mean, what is the book going to change? You're still going to eat. You're still going to have a warm place to sleep. Your friends are still going to love you. People are still going to respect you. So why write a book, right? Your motivation is not going to be there unless it's attached to purpose, unless it's attached to who you be on the planet. And this is why I talk about purpose so much. And it's impossible to talk about motivation without bringing in the aspects of purpose. So we're going to dive into purpose more, but I want you to put a pin there, like underline, if you're taking notes, underline purpose, like circle purpose is an incredible source of motivation. But now I want to speak to someone else. Because our worries blur our vision for the future with fears of the future. And some of us, we're not motivated because we worry a lot. We're not motivated because we're scared of change. And our dreams, they are these internal sources of motivation, but worry will keep you stuck where you are. And fear freezes. And think about this. Warriors, they can't sharpen the saw. Like we talk about sharpening the saw. Sometimes we talk about iron, sharpening iron. Warriors, they can't do that. They can't sharpen the saw. From fear, a sharp blade just might cut them and not the wood. Why would I go in and spend my time with people just as smart as me, because they might find out what I don't know, versus me finding out things I don't know, right? They kind of think I'm afraid I'm gonna get cut, versus sharpen the saw. So warriors, they can't sharpen the saw. They're too afraid that the sharp blade to get them. And those controlled by fear find themselves stuck, staring at the saw, worrying about the damage a sharp saw can present. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Those controlled by fear, they'll say, well, I would become a Slayer Goals member, but it might change things in my life, and I don't know. I don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen, like what that would present to me, and all those different things. Or I would go to this conference, or I would go to this seminar, I would go to this virtual thing, but what will I learn? It might keep me unsettled. It might change my state. So they let fear keep them frozen. And this morning, I want to ask you, and this is an opportunity for you to really practice a certain level of self-awareness. Are you a warrior? Does fear have you frozen in your life? I ask because time is moving. The world is spinning. And there you are, stuck in the same place. Stuck, watching life, loved ones, and dreams just pass you by. When are you going to stop playing it safe? Did you know that playing it safe can kill you? Maybe not kill you physically, but did you know it can kill you on the inside? Did you know living a dull, predictable life and of survival is a cancer that erodes your courage and decays your seed of greatness? Did you know that? Did you know the biggest risk you can take in life is to never take a risk at all? It's the best way to guarantee that you will leave no legacy, no impact, and no lasting memories. So this morning, if you're this person, and I'm speaking to you, and you feel it in your spirit, and you feel it in your soul, take a risk. Take a risk. It's time for you to choose your adventure. This is life. Experience life fully. You only get one. Take a risk. Choose your adventure. A man without a mission, a man without a vision, is a man without purpose. And a woman without a dream has no motivation. So this morning, if that's you, what's your motivation? What is your motivation? And begin to step into that and practice the things that I've shared. Now, for those of you who consider yourselves, you're not warriors and you're not fearful, you're probably like, well, Linal, why you change your voice? Well, you don't want to shout at somebody that worries now, do you? You don't want to scream at somebody that's afraid. And so you got to be with them where they are. But for those of you who are, you next level, right? Now, this is for you. Let's talk about motivation. And I want you to write this down. Because if you really want to get underneath what motivation is and start really taking on the being of motivation, this is what motivation looks like. Write this down. Ambition plus expectancy equals a spark. Right? That's not mine. That's Brendan Burchard's, but I like it. Ambition plus expectancy equals a spark. And then think about this, right? This going to the three phases of self-discipline again. Attention or concentration plus effort equals your ability to sustain the spark. Let me say it again. So ambition plus expectancy. I have an ambition and I expect that I can create this ambition that creates a spark. Boom. Then you bring your attention to the spark that you've created, the motivation that you have. And then you apply effort. What is effort? Effort is action. That equals the ability to sustain the ambition and the motivation. And then all you have to do is maintain the attitude of motivation and create the environment for motivation. We're going to get into environment in a moment. The key to all success, folks, is motivation. And all motivation starts with some level of ambition. So again, what do you want? What do you want? And if you don't know what you want, you can't be motivated. It's that simple. Your life's purpose provides the ultimate desire. The ultimate desire. Let me say, man, if I didn't come into purpose, I would not be here right now. I wouldn't be on the radio. I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have a family. How do I know? Man, I got a friend right now. I was running with close and thick. The only difference between us is I pursued purpose and he pursued life. That's it. And he's still single. I love him. He's still single. He's still struggling. He's still trying to figure it out because he wasn't clear about what he wanted. And I can guarantee you it wasn't women and it wasn't drink and it wasn't good weed. As a matter of fact, another friend of mine's father used to always say, you can't be with all the women, you can't drink all the drink, and you can't smoke all the smoke, so you might as well live a life of purpose. And I love that one. So here's the thing. Your life's purpose provides the ultimate desire, and your life's purpose is aligned with God's desire. So don't baseline your expectations on what happened yesterday or today. Your ambition has nothing to do with where you are now. It has nothing to do with where you're from. And let me prove it. All I got to do is say some names. You know the stories. Tyler Perry lived in his car, broke. Steve Harvey lived in his car, Broke. Chadwick Boseman couldn't even pay for acting class. Broke. Don't let circumstances define your dreams. What's your ambition? What's going to keep you going as you pursue the ambition? This is why you can do the things you put your mind to. And you can do it if you learn how to self-generate motivation. You can do it. How do I know? How do I know that you can do it if you learn to generate self-motivation? Well, 1, I've done it. 2, I've seen other people do it. 3, I've helped people do it. But then check this out. The average American spends 4 hours a day watching television. I still can't wrap my mind around that. Yesterday was a Saturday, and I didn't spend 4 hours watching television, so I can imagine doing it on a weekday, but it is what it is. The average American spends 4 hours a day watching television. So get this, let's run that. The average adult, if they're spending 4 hours a day watching television, that means they spend 13 years of their life in front of a TV. 13 years of their life in front of a TV. That's an income potential. Yeah, I broke it down into the money. That's an income potential of almost $500,000. If you make minimum wage. That's minimum. If you make minimum wage and instead of sitting in front of a TV, you were out working in a lifetime, that's $500,000 just kind of blowing into the wind of entertainment. But then get this, if you make $30 an hour, you can jump that up to a little bit under $1 million or about 800,000. And if you make more than that, then you're throwing away over $1 million in potential revenue because you don't know how to get into gear and get off the couch. What if you could invest that $1 million in you? What if you could invest that $1 million in your legacy? What if you could invest it in your purpose? I'm going to tell you something today. You got to stop letting your disbelief and your worries and your fears getting in the way of your ability to create. Here's a great question to start your days. Ask yourself, what might get in my way today? What might get in my way? What might get in my way? And then be aware of that thing you said and play through the resistance. Those of you who join me on Monday, we have a really good idea and knowledge of resistance. Again, you can join me every Monday for the free coaching webinar series at Linal by going to linalharris.com to register for free. But on Mondays, we've been talking about resistance. And so the idea is awareness. And then when you're aware, then you navigate, you push through the resistance. All right, so what does pushing through the resistance look like? You guys remember Michael Jordan and his flu game? He played through it. He played through it. Are you playing through it? Have you learned, can you wake up in the morning and say, what might get in my way today? And then when it hits, when the resistance hits, you know how to conjure up the motivation to play through it? Right now, we want to honor the brother Chadwick Boseman. When you think about his life, he played through it. If there's I don't know of a better example right now, someone who probably had to wake up every day and get himself mentally into a state, emotionally into a state of motivation. Because physically, he couldn't do it. I don't even know. I watched the movie 21 Bridges and saw now I'm thinking man, that brother was running and he was in combat scenes. How did he do it? How did he do it? He played through it. Chadwick Boseman said, I want to die with no talent left in me. Pray God, that's my prayer, man. I want to die with no talent left in me. Man, God, please just tap every piece of talent that you've given me, every gift that you've given me, every gift that you've given listeners. Help us tap into it so we can leave with no talent left. Does that motivate you? God God knows it motivates me. You motivated yet? Because now you know the one way you can start to jumpstart your motivation process. There are 3 sources to motivation. 3 sources for all motivation. If you're experiencing motivation right now, then you're experiencing one of the sources. That's motivational and inspirational inputs. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you feeding yourself? You want to stay in a state and condition motivation? Let me tell you, man. Like, part of my formula is, I'm constantly feeding myself motivation, feeding myself inspiration. But number 2, the second source of all motivation is a clear vision and a clear why. What's your vision for life? What's your why? Your why is your purpose. What's your purpose? And then number 3 is awareness for what is fun for you. Get that. You telling me motivation can be fun? What's fun for you? I feel so blessed because it's fun for me to go to work on Mondays. It's fun for me to step into my office and do my work. It's fun. My life is fun. It's fun for me to go home and be with my family. It's fun for me to be with my son. It's fun. And so then when you surround yourself and you're aware of what's fun for you, then you stay motivated. You find yourself constantly motivated. You see, your problem isn't that you aren't motivated, because motivation is everywhere. Motivation is in your music. Motivation is on YouTube. Motivation is in your news feed. Otherwise, many of you wouldn't be watching this right now. Many of you wouldn't be listening. This is motivation. The problem is you don't take action when you're motivated. It's not that motivation isn't around you. The problem is you're not taking action when you're motivated. And then when you are down, you don't know how to generate the state of motivation. Take action. Stop procrastinating. And if you don't know how, hire a coach. Hire a coach right now. Don't wait. Your life is too precious. And if you want to stay motivated, you're going to have to get really clear about who you are. So here's the part where we talk about bouncing back from failure and staying motivated. You're going to have to get really clear on who you are, man, if you want to stay motivated. Because most of us, we're not 100% clear on who we are. We're not 100% clear on who God wants us to be. And because of that, there'll come a day when your back is against the wall, and if you don't know what you have inside you, if you don't know what you're capable of, you will be stapled to the wall. You'll be nailed to that wall. Right now, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to start to tap into a new level of self-knowledge, tap into a new level of purpose. See, purpose is your identity. And many of us, we've been given a false identity out here. And that's one of the reasons you're not motivated. You wake up and you say, oh, well, never a good day to be black. Looking at the mirror's looking back. Well, that's not your identity. We talked about that. You're a soul. You're a spirit. You're on a spiritual journey. How do you get so caught up in your physical identity? And you letting your physical identity sap all your motivation. It's time to step into your true identity, into your true purpose, into who you really truly are. Because when you get connected to that, when you get connected to the power source, when you get connected to your spiritual substance, when you get connected to your essence, not only do you become motivated, but you start to feel the power that's stirring inside you. And when you feel that power that's stirring inside you, you know, it's just got to get out. A lot of my good friends, man, we get into these conversations and, they And they're just stirred all the time. There's always something they want to give. And people don't understand why there's always something they want to give, something they always got to say. And part of it's because they're in contact with their essence. They're connected to their spiritual substance. And so there's something churning inside them, telling them that I got to create. I got to do something. I got to shift what's going on. I gotta wake people up. They feel it. I feel it. That's why I get up every morning and I come out here on Sundays. That's why I do what I do day in and day out, client after client, webinar after webinar, group after group. Because there's something inside me saying, I want you to have a part of this. You got it. You got to see the greatness. Now are you gonna water it? Are you gonna water it? Are you going to let it grow? Are you going to nourish it? Are you going to start to surround yourself with the beauty and the sun and God's creation and the things that are beautiful, that motivate it? Are you? Are you going to let the darkness consume it? The choice is yours. The choice is yours, but I know for all of us, there comes a time when our back's against the wall. It's time for you to deliver. You don't know how you're going to do it. Maybe you're down. Maybe you're down in your health. You don't know how you're going to come out of it. Maybe you've lost a loved one. You don't know how you're going to bounce back. And for all of us, there'll come a day when you're alone. No one else can help you. What will you do? What will you do when your back's against the wall? There will come a day when the deck is stacked against you. Everything you've done seems like it's turning against you. You've given your best effort. You've prayed your best prayer. You've tapped into everything that God has given you, your essence, your spiritual power, your substance. There'll come a day when you want to drop your head. You just want to walk away. I'm telling you, I've had the moments. And I'm telling you that in that moment, if you don't remember that you are the master of your fate, it belongs to you. This life belongs to you. It's God's, but he gave it to you. What are you going to do? And if you don't become the master of your fate, if you don't become the captain of your soul, if you don't learn how to generate your own motivation, how to stay in the state of motivation, if you don't learn how to own your inspiration, I might not always be here. You know, your favorite preacher might not always be here. But do you have it? Is it something that you soaked into your soul, it's soaked into your spirit where you can generate it yourself? Have you gotten to a point where you know how to turn on your motivation and you know how to turn on your inspiration, so no matter what happens, you know you won't give up? This morning I'm here to tell you, because I know from experience that along your journey, you're going to come across some locked doors. You're going to come across some people that don't want to see you succeed. You're going to encounter your haters. What will it do? Will it knock you back down? Or will you use the steam of their hate to power your dreams? Like, you get to choose. But the only way you can choose what's right for you if you know how to generate that state and condition of motivation. You're going to bump your head on glass ceilings, folks. They're going to tell you, no, this is not for you. You can't do this. What are you going to do? You're going to tuck your tail, capitulate, let go of the dream? Or are you going to conjure up a deeper level of motivation? Okay. All right, you can tell me that if you want to. Just watch. Step into a new level of motivation, a deeper level of inspiration, because you know that that's yours. You know that you can claim it as mine. That's mine. And I don't care if there's a ceiling in the way. I don't care if there's a wall. I'm going to break through. See, you got to do it. No matter what obstacle you face. If it's blocking you from living your dream, you got to push past it. You got to fight through it. And that's what this conversation's all about, because it's not always going to be easy. So have you found the ability within yourself to be self-motivated? Man, this pandemic hit, it took a lot of our businesses by surprise. Revenues dropped. People walked away. Customers walked away. Clients walked away. It got dark. But who you gonna be? What you gonna do? You gonna give up? You gonna close the doors? You're gonna be self-motivated. Like, what are you gonna do? This is where we are, man. Many of us right now, you're trying to make a decision. Do I stay or do I go? And I'm telling you this morning, nah, man, you don't go. It's time to stay. It's time to drop an anchor. It's time to dig your heels in. It's time to start just drenching yourself with inputs of motivation, drenching yourself with inputs of inspiration, praying, doing whatever it takes so you can fight through. But it's up to you. You got to be self-motivated. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Are you willing to go and never give up? Will you dare? Will you dare to be great? Every time you try to take a step forward, every time you try to be great, you feel people pulling you back. So what? Will you dare? Will you dare to be great? Will you dare to put yourself on the line? Will you dare to put yourself out there? Will you dare to give your gift? Will you dare to live your purpose? Do you dare? Do you? I dare you to knock down the walls. I dare you to do everything you can to break through those walls. And guess what? If they don't break, then you dig underneath them. And if you can't dig, then you climb over it. And if you can't climb, then you just keep walking. And you keep walking until the wall ends and you can get to the other side. But will you stay in action? Will you be self-motivated? The third step to personal development. Because here's the thing, you can learn everything you need to learn, you can read everything you need to read, but if you don't know how to conjure it up, if you don't know how to pour it into your spirit and create something from it, what use is it? Some of you right now, you're in a breakdown. Feels like you've been in a breakdown for a year. Maybe you feel like you've been in a breakdown for 2 years. Your marriage is failing. Your health is failing. Your business is failing. My question to you, would you dare to persist? Would you dare to persist until you get your breakthrough? Do you dare? Because we know what happens when you give up. We already know what happens when you give up. It all falls apart when you give up. So this morning, would you dare to persist? Will you dare to keep going? And as you dare, do you know that God has your back if you're doing his work? If your work is aligned with his will, do you know that he's got your life's purpose and he wants you to live your life's purpose? And anything you're going through right now, even if it's your darkest moment, even if it's the roughest moment of your life, he's putting you through it on purpose. He's taking you down the path because he knows what he wants you to do. He knows how he wants you to pour into other people. And right now, this is your opportunity to step into a new level of motivation, because motivation is your fuel as you travel down that dark road. This morning, will you be self-motivated? I'm going to end with asking the questions that I started today's broadcast with. See, motivation, it's a choice. It's a state. You want to be self-motivated, you got to choose motivation. In order to choose motivation, that means you got to surround yourself with the inputs. You got to surround yourself. It's got to become a lifestyle. It's got to become a lifestyle. Camping trip last week. My cousins, we all sitting around the campfire. Sitting there, we're having a good time, friends and family. And my cousin was DJing. I'm like, man, get this stuff out of here. My cousin's north of 50. I'm like, man, come on, let's play a little something. Let's play something extras can enjoy. They started to call me DJ inspired. They're like, yeah, man, you always wearing your, even on the campsite, you wearing your gear. But this is my state. This is who I choose to be. This is the gift that God has given me. And so I'm going to ask these questions. I want you to think through these questions. I started the broadcast with these questions. But I want you to think about this. Because these questions are about you and your ability to stay motivated. Do you believe life is one big head game? Think about that. What voice are you listening to in your head? Many of us want to make it bigger than that. But life is really about our consciousness and our subconscious and what we put in it. And the decisions that we make. Yes and no. All happen up here. Do you believe life is one big head game? Do you believe that your life is a sum result of the story you tell yourself? What stories are you telling yourself? Do you tell yourself you're motivated? Do you tell yourself you're inspired? Do you tell yourself stories of motivation? When I'm down, I think of all the many stories I've read, novels, nonfiction alike, of people who conquered, people who've surmounted incredible odds. What story are you telling yourself this morning? Is it motivating? Do you believe that purpose makes the critical difference in your life? See, you can't be self-motivated if you don't know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't really understand your true DNA. You don't know what makes you up. You don't know what you really desire, what it is that you truly want. You're being told something. Is it time for you to tap into your purpose in a new way? Learn more about your purpose? Dig deeper in purpose? Do you believe that success in life requires continual adjustment? I just said that your back's going to be against the wall at some point. If you don't know how to adjust, if you don't know how to dig down deep inside you and pull out a core of motivation, if you don't know how to really step forward, if you don't know how to adjust, you might find yourself in big trouble. See, this wasn't just a motivational broadcast. It was an opportunity to teach, an opportunity to pour into you, but also not just pour into you, but teach you how to sustain what it is that you feel in this moment. And sustenance requires continual adjustment. Do you believe in celebrating the tiny successes? See, because here's the thing. Trouble don't last always, but trouble comes. And many of us, we don't have anything to pull up on because we're not celebrating the small things. I said I was going to lose 50 pounds. I just lost 5. Celebration. I said I was going to make $10,000 more this year. I hit 5. Celebration. See, we always telling ourselves, well, that's not enough. And in many ways, we're creating our own leaks in the inspiration and motivation that's supposed to propel us forward. Are you celebrating when you should celebrate? Now, some of us celebrate when we're not supposed to. I'm not talking to them. You know who I'm talking to. Some of you, you're just constantly pushing yourselves. Stop. Celebrate. Thank God for that moment. Because that celebration will become the inspiration you need, the motivation you need when you run into a wall. Do you believe that it's the sum total of life that matters, not the moments? See, when your back's against the wall, it's just a moment. It's just a moment. Now, sometimes these moments can feel like weeks, can feel like months, can feel like years. But it's just a moment. And when the moment passes, you look back and you ask yourself, who did I be? Was I the best version of me? Did I walk away from the wall, or did I break through the wall? And those of us who have regrets will be the ones who walked away, because we couldn't sustain our motivation. We couldn't sustain our inspiration. We didn't know how to take action. But for those of us who can smile on our deathbeds when we look over our lives in our mature age, and we can smile about who God allowed us to be and the purpose that he's given us, you're not going to be smiling because it was easy. You're going to be smiling as you think about the walls you broke down. You're going to be smiling as you think about the barriers and obstacles you overcame. You're going to be smiling as you think about how you had to generate your joy, how you had to generate your peace even in the darkest hours, because you learned how to be self-motivated. Do you believe we gain knowledge through suffering? Do you believe that when you learn how to tap into a different level of motivation and inspiration when your back's against the wall, that now it's something you got, can't nobody take from you? Now you know that when my back's against the wall, I still know how to break through. When I bump into ceilings, I know how to break them. Are you mentally tough? Can you be in the problem? Can you be with the opportunity? In the face of the opportunity, can you conjure up your motivation to say, this too shall pass, this I will solve with God's help? Do you believe the passion that you've been looking for is all around you? And all you have to do is learn how to funnel it. Funnel it inside of you and turn it into the things that you need, the motivation you need, the inspiration you need to accomplish any goal you set forth. You believe that? This morning, do you believe you can be self-motivated? I do. And if you listened this morning, your answer should be yes. I do too. This morning, as we end, I'm just going to ask DJ Pat to bring on something inspirational and motivation as we close out. God bless you all, man. I love you. And I'm always incredibly grateful for the opportunity to live out my purpose and to do the work that I know I've been put here to do. It's, man, such a wonderful privilege. And I thank you all for the support. I thank you all for being sources of my own motivation and inspiration. Next week, we're going to talk about number 4, study. The 4th step to personal development is the ability to study. Have a phenomenal Sunday, everyone. God bless you guys. DJ Pat. See you all next Sunday. See you all next Sunday. My name is Linal Harris. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Have a phenomenal Sunday. All right, you guys, that's the show. Man, if you got something from this, share it. Share the stream. And I look forward to connecting with you all next week on step number 4, ability to study. Woo! You don't want to miss that one. All right, you guys. I love you and have a phenomenal Sunday. Be blessed.